is like my 4th attempt. So I said I wasn't gonna make a video, and this isn't an update video. So if that's what you're looking for, sorry about you. You're probably not gonna get one for a couple months. But I'm feeling a little feisty, and there are some things that I want to say. And most of it's rooted in this article that a longtime friend had sent me. I guess it's not an article, an opinion piece that someone had wrote in, and it was published. And it's titled "No Such Thing as Transgender," and I'm feeling feisty, so I'm going to say some things about it. First of all, I don't speak for the entire transgender community, nor will I ever. Anything that I say or talk about is based on my experiences and my opinion. Now that we got that out of the way, I'm all over the place right now. Most simply, I exist. I am a living, breathing member of the United States of America. I exist as a person. I exist as a transgender person. And anyone's refusal to acknowledge that doesn't change it. It doesn't. I am still here as a transgender person, whether you believe transgender is a real thing, whether you still want to call me by my birth name and she, her, and her, whatever, she, her, and hers. I still exist as a man. And you're not going to change that. There's nothing you're going to do that's going to change that. I lived 23 years as a woman who was mostly incredibly unhappy. You're not going to change it just because you're ignorant. Because you're ignorant and because you're a jerk. Try not to curse. So you don't get to tell me that I don't exist. You don't get to tell me that part of my identity isn't a real thing. That it was just created by the liberal media and the LGBTQ community, and it's just this imaginable thing. You don't get to decide that. You don't. I'm not gonna call this person out, but you don't get to decide that if you have never lived in my shoes or in any other transgender person's shoes. You don't get to decide that what we feel and who we are doesn't exist. You don't have to understand it. You don't have to even pretend to understand it. I get that you probably don't. If you are a cisgendered person, you have no freaking idea what it's like to be transgender. Same as I'm a white person. I have no freaking idea what it means to be a person of color, nor will I ever know what it's like to experience racism. It's the same concept. Though most of you preaching that transgender isn't a thing are also jerks about that. But I'm not going to go into that. So I exist as a person, and I exist as a transgender person, and I don't have surgery to change my gender. I have not had surgery, and I am still a freaking man. Point blank. I was a man before I started testosterone. I was a man before my voice dropped, before I got some like 12-year-old facial hair. I was still a man. Also, any surgery I have is not a counterfeit. I'm not making counterfeit parts exist on my body. They are going to be real things. It's going to be a real body. Blood and tissue, and it's not, nothing's pretend about it. I just don't understand. And this person wasn't mean and aggressive and wasn't telling me that I should go to hell because I'm transgender and what have you, all the other crap that I've heard. So, kudos, I guess. I mean, you don't get a cookie for it, but thanks for not being a total jerk. But when you post these kinds of things, these opinions, which you are allowed to have, freedom of speech means you can't get arrested. It doesn't mean I can't tell you that you're a jerk. I can still tell you you're a jerk. Freedom of speech also means that I get to make this video and tell everyone that why I think you're a jerk. So yeah, say what you want to say. You, as an American citizen, you have that right, and I do not wish to take that right away from you. I simply want to be acknowledged as a person. I live in Indiana, where I have zero legal protections as a citizen. Thankfully, the city I live in, I have protections. If I were to move anywhere else, I could be denied housing, service, job. I could start a job, they could find out I'm transgender, and they could fire me for being transgender, and there isn't a damn thing I can do about it. So that already sucks enough. And then you want to post these articles about how I don't actually exist. You, this person that I don't even know, you think you have every right to dictate whether or not my existence is a real thing, whether or not my experiences are real, whether or not my feelings are real, whether or not how I identify is a real thing. Thankfully, most of the comments were telling him that he was a jerk, so that was a little satisfying. And they're from people who lived in the city. That was even more satisfying. But when you post these kind of things, whether or not you're being mean about it, you're promoting hatred. You're promoting this idea that if people don't succumb to your way of life, to the way you view things, to this black and white image that you have of this world, that they shouldn't exist. And you're teaching people to hate themselves. You're teaching people that they're wrong in who they are, and they're wrong in how they feel, and that they're just better off just not feeling anything. And that's the part that upsets me the most. I grew up in a really small town. I had no idea what transgender was until I left it. And I think that's a problem. I think that's a problem. But I had a hard enough time coming to terms with who I was attracted to, because that also wasn't a thing that existed. And I can't even imagine if I came out as transgender back then. I mean, I almost got expelled for coming out as a lesbian. So, yeah, expelled from a public school for just being me. So when you post these articles, it's not just vulnerable adults who read these. There are children who can get a hold of this, and there are children who feel like they can't talk to anybody because they don't even believe they have a right to exist in this world, in society, in your community. And when kids who are questioning who they are have these feelings, they oftentimes can turn to destructive behavior, and they can be suicidal, or they can harm themselves, or they can just hide away and miss out on a bunch of things that they shouldn't have to miss out on. And that's the part that's upsetting me the most, I think, about this, because I'm secure enough in who I am now, but I wasn't always, and I did some destructive behaviors, and I thought I was better off not existing for a while. And queer kids, whether they be questioning their sexuality, gender, all of the above, have a higher suicide rate than pretty much any other group of kids. And it's because of opinion pieces like this, where maybe you're not intending to be harmful, but you're erasing a part of what they're trying to figure out is their identity. And it shouldn't be like that. You shouldn't make a kid feel that. You shouldn't make anyone feel that way, but you shouldn't make a kid feel that way. Especially, I mean, do you want to know if your kids are feeling that way? Do you want to know what you can do to help? Or do you just want to push them until they just can't handle it anymore? If you're a very important person in their life and they're reading this opinion piece that you wrote, how do you think that makes them feel. They think you don't even acknowledge them. So I don't know, that's all I want to say. You have every right to your opinion, but you should probably evaluate your opinion and whether or not it needs to be stated and who can be influenced by it. So, the moral of the story is that I exist, whether you want to acknowledge me or not.